I'd like to call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of March 12, 2018 be adopted with a late addition item 6A, Fisheries Resolution from Jory Thurkelson. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of February 26, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of February 26, 2018 be received. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 26, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first up we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2018 budget.
Good evening. Thank you for attending or watching from home our first of two public consultations on the 2018 budget. Staff presented the 2018 municipal budget on February 26th. We will be showing a snapshot of that presentation for the purpose of public engagement and feedback at this public consultation. Council will listen to the comments and questions from the public as a part of their deliberation for this year's budget bylaws. After the presentation, people are asked to approach the microphone and either ask their question or provide their comments. However, before we start talking about the budget, we would like to show the viewers here and at home two short videos. The first is a snapshot of some of the achievements from 2017, and the second is a video we presented last year to help people understand property taxes. Okay, and that was the first video, and here's the second one.
Meet Susan. This year, she bought her first home in Tiny Town. Susan understands a bit about property taxes, but she still has some questions. Who sets the property tax rate? And how are the property tax rates calculated? The city's finance department calculates the property tax rates by creating an annual budget, which is subject to approval by City Council. Once total projected expenses are calculated, other revenues that the city receives, like provincial grants and fees from public services, are subtracted from those expenses. The remainder is to be covered by property taxes in order to balance the budget. How do I calculate my personal property taxes? The property taxes you personally pay on your home or business are based on the assessed value of your property provided by the BC Assessment Office. Each year, the city recalculates the tax rate for each type of property: residential, commercial, and some form of industrial, in order to make sure that it doesn't collect more than what's needed to balance the budget. Here is an example of how changes to assessed values can impact the property taxes you pay. Let's say the city of Tiny Town only has 3 homes, and each home is assessed at $100,000. The total taxes needed to balance the town's budget is $600. That means that the tax rate must be set at $600 divided by the total values of all properties, which equals 0.002. That means each property owner pays $100,000 times 0.002, which equals $200 each. Each property pays their share of taxes based on their assessed value. So what if your assessed values have changed? Let's say the next year, the assessed value for the same 3 homes has changed, and one is now worth $150,000, one is still worth $100,000, and the last is now worth $80,000. Tiny Town still needs $600 to balance the budget. So this means the city will need to calculate a new tax rate to match the changed value. Again, the city will divide the $600 needed by the total value of all properties, which equals a new property tax rate of 0.0015. So this means the city will need to calculate a new tax rate to match the changed value. This means that the first property owner, whose value went up, will pay $270. The homeowner, whose value stays the same at $100,000, will pay $180. And the homeowner, whose assessed value declined, will pay $144. If you have any issues with the assessment of your property, you can contact BC Assessments at 1-866-825-8322. This is a simple explanation of how your property taxes are calculated each year.
We hope the previous videos were informative. Now we will recap some of the information originally presented to Council on February 26th. After taking into account the expected revenues and expense items, the City is happy to present a balanced budget, meaning no increase. To calculate the impact to a property owner of the recommended mill rate, one needs to compare the 2017 combined general property tax to the amount calculated for 2018. The 2017 combined general property tax can be found on the 2017 property tax notice as shown in the red circles. These are the only categories Council can decide on. All the rest of the tax levies are either set by another authority or calculated based on assessed values in Prince Rupert to pay the bill the City is sent. This is the formula to calculate the general levy. Take 2018's assessed value divided by 1,000 times the 2018 mill rate. This is the municipal property tax for 2018. Compare this to the 2017 combined general property tax as found on the previous slide. This will inform you whether the taxes have gone up or down on your home. We have provided all of the proposed mill rates on the next slide for viewers to calculate the potential impact to them, whether it be their home or their business property. On the far right column are the proposed municipal rates for 2018. They are compared to the 2017 mill rates in yellow. You will note the rate has decreased for residents. This is because assessed values have increased, so we adjust the rate to take in only the amount needed to balance the budget. The mill rate is only a multiplier applied to the assessed value to arrive at a dollar figure. We have provided the effect to a homeowner with an average assessed value home in both 2017 and 2018. In 2017, a homeowner with an average assessed value of $260,000 paid $1,685 in municipal tax. In 2018, the average assessed value of a home is $272,000. Therefore, if a homeowner had an average assessed value home in 2017 and an averaged assessed value home in 2018, that homeowner could expect to pay $1,685 in municipal tax each year. This slide shows the projected daily cost for the average homeowner in 2018. For example, every day, an average household will contribute $4.62 per day to access all municipal services, excluding utilities. This translates into $1.80 for all protective services, 42 cents for roads and sidewalks, 74 cents for parks and recreation, 28 cents for community services grants, and 23 cents for airport access, to name a few of the services. As mentioned on a previous slide, the proposed residential mill rate is lower than last year. To show in real dollars the effect this has on a homeowner provided the value of their home stayed the same, we have created the following table. This table is in a range of dollar values where the majority of residential assessed value levels exist. For simplicity, we have separated them in $50,000 increments. For example, if a homeowner's value in 2017 was $200,000, the 2017 municipal tax is paid $1,296. At the proposed 2018 rate, the taxes are $1,238, or $58 less than in 2017. We have created this visual for viewers to see where their tax dollars are expected to be spent in 2018. The largest allocations are to RCMP at 24%, fire at 15%, recreation at 12%, roads and sidewalks at 9%, and grants at 6%. These 5 categories make up 66% of the services funded through taxation. The following 3D graph will show you the change over time in the assessment values of the 4 largest tax classes the city collects from. The graph starts in 1998 and goes to the present day. Light industrial is the pink bars, and it hasn't changed much since 1998. Major industrial is the yellow bars. Since 2006, we have introduced 2 new industries, the Container Port and Pinnacle Pellet Plant, an expansion of the coal facility, an expansion of the Container Port, and the beginning of construction of Alta Gas. With all that investment, the average value of assessments for the major industrial tax class has only gone up 19% since 2006. The green bars represent the assessment value for businesses, which has doubled since 2006. Finally, the red bars represent the assessment value for the residential tax class, which has gone up 125% since 2006. As you can see, the residential property assessments have increased substantially as compared to the assessments for major industry, despite significant new industrial investments. So why the difference? The assessments for major industrial terminals consider the depreciation, or loss of value, from the assets owned by industry over time. For instance, if a major industrial property owner builds a new improvement, like a warehouse, on their property, every year after the initial purchase, the value of the warehouse will go down due to wear and tear, maintenance requirements, etc. Meanwhile, residential properties are assessed based on market transactions observed in the real estate market from year to year. The neighbor who listed for and sold their home at a price higher than market value has in turn increased your property's assessed value. These valuations are made by the BC Assessment Authority, which the city has no control over. The point of this graph is to show the differences between the ways that types of properties, residential, business, and industrial, are valued by BC Assessment over time, which then impacts the proportion of property taxes paid by each tax class. There is no doubt that taxes in Prince Rupert are higher than our neighbours. We offer some services that other communities do not have. For example, airport access. However, there is a legislative reason why taxes are higher in Prince Rupert. In 2004, the province of British Columbia capped the major industrial mill rate for all municipalities with a qualifying import-export property. Therefore, the city can only charge capped rates on industry that is considered eligible. All of the city's major industrial operating activity qualifies for these capped rates. Unlike residential and business properties, industrial properties assessments decline. Therefore, a limited tax rate on a declining assessment results in diminishing tax revenues. This graph shows the impact to the City of Prince Rupert by rate-paying category from 2004, when the tax caps were introduced, through to 2017. You can see on the yellow line where new investment offers a spike of new taxation from industry, but declines afterwards as assessed values decline. The red line is the residential tax revenue and the green line is the business tax revenue. The residential burden has increased from $4.7 million to $7 million in 13 years. The business burden has increased from $3.2 million to $4.9 million. Major industrial tax revenue has declined from $4.5 million to $3 million. There are two new industries, an expansion of the coal terminal and an expansion to the container port in this time frame. Staff and council have continued to educate the province on the impacts to our particular community of this provincial legislation. We encourage the public to write MLA Jennifer Rice to have the province fund in whole their provincial incentive program. It is expected that changes to the proposed mill rates are likely, given it is tied to assessed values. BC Assessment will release the revised roll March 31st, which will take into account any appeals to assessed value. Any reductions to assessed values may impact the proposed mill rates. Given that property taxes are not tied to ability to pay, homeowners should familiarize themselves with available programs that may offer some relief for those that qualify. The provincial government offers residents the Homeowner Grant and a tax deferral program. These programs are available to reduce property taxes paid and defer the tax payments through a loan that is recovered at the time of sale. Please contact City Hall for details of each program or look on your property tax notice. Thank you for listening to our presentation. If you do not have an opportunity to either ask a question or make a comment for council to hear today, we will have another public consultation opportunity on Monday, March 26th at 7 p.m. in council chambers located in City Hall. Comments and questions can also be received through email to cityhall@finance@princerupert.ca. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up we have our public comment period here about the proposed budget. And so today's session is not a committee of the whole, so we're here to talk about specifically the 5-year budget, and there's a committee of the whole at the end of the month. So any other questions or concerns about the city can be brought up there. So any questions directed will be directed to finance and most likely written down and answers to be generated for the next public meeting on the 26th. So members of the public can come forward now and talk to council regarding the budget specifically. Welcome.
Harry Golden, 1601 2nd Avenue West. Thank you. I wanted to ask about the RCMP because, as Wade said last year, why quibble about $18,000 when you're dealing with a budget of $5.3 million or something like that, the RCMP. Some of the sources, I've asked around, some of the sources say that the RCMP has 36 members, Terrace has 25, etc. So I would like some kind of comment on that, but I've cheated and talked to to the inspector. So when I talked to the inspector, he said that Prince Rupert is paying for 29 members. But that's still, so that's still, Terrace is presumably, if we can go by the figures that are online, still has 25. So So that's what, so we're paying for that many members, et cetera. The bad part about this and all that I'm kind of worried about is what happens when we build the new, I don't see it on, if there were loans or that, for if we build a new facility. Are we going to build it for 36? We're going to build it for 25? We're going to build it so it can add, it could lose, or et cetera. Plus, it's no doubt that they need it. I was told that when some guys came to the all-native tournament, and they came through the border illegally, they had to be sent to Terrace by the RCMP. So we don't know why. But so we do have, what we need is to know the 36 to the 29. Maclean's has stats, Maclean's magazine has stats on for offenses. What we don't know is, are those offenses, plus they break it down into, this year I think Prince Rupert is 28th in Canada or something like that. What they don't break down is, so some of those stats, what happened before when Canada was, when Prince Rupert came out like number 5 in the country is for the worst, is that they'd use the stats for the whole region as opposed to just, so it would be nice if we could find out if the stats on Maclean are all those, the robberies, the assaults, are those for our district, and are they accurate? Maclean seemed to think they are, but we don't, before they've included the ones for the whole region. While I'm on this bent, what I would really like to see us do is to say somehow the RCMP station and the jail sort of function like the regional hospital. We are the regional place where people come from, therefore it should be funded regionally, or at least some of these other places should be putting in parts for the new jail or whatever, and not just funded by Prince Rupert taxpayers. If not, we should be charging them. You want to send your person over here from Lac Wallons, you want to send them to this jail, you're going to have to pay us this exorbitant rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing as we have no other members of the public, we will end the public comment period. Okay, so we'll move on to reports from council. Councilor Renaud. Oh, excuse me, sorry, 6A. My bad. The resolution from Councilor Thorkelson regarding the Fisheries Act. So Councilor Thorkelson, I know you're on the phone. Oh, sorry.
Just given that I have multiple members of my family working in the commercial fishing industry, I'm just going to excuse myself for any perceived conflict.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, so Councilor Thorkelson, perhaps you could read out your motion and some explanation as well?
Sure. The motion reads, whereas BC's wild commercial fishery contributes $800 million in wholesale value to the provincial economy, of which $400 million is in landed value paid to fishermen when fish is landed. And rural coastal communities benefit from the portion of the landed value paid to fishermen who reside in our communities. And we benefit from wages paid to shore workers if there are processing plants in our community. And as the Federal Fisheries Act has been reopened to help ensure that the economic benefits of fishing remain with the license holders and their community by providing amendments to the Fisheries Act that would help support a strong, independent inshore commercial fishery in Atlantic Canada and Quebec. And whereas the amended Fisheries Act would recognize that when making decisions under the Act, the Minister can take into account the social, economic, and cultural factors, the preservation and promotion of an independent inshore commercial fishery as in Atlantic Canada and Quebec. The proposed Act would clarify that regulations can be made to enshrine aspects of the inshore fisheries policy and regulations, including rules that help ensure that the holder of a license retains the benefits generated by fishing, ensure that only the license holder personally fishes using that license, support the fleet separation policy by prohibiting certain types of corporations from holding licenses in the inshore sector, and allowing the suspension or cancellation of licenses where license holders are party to an agreement that violates any part of the Act or regulations. These proposed changes to the Fisheries Act would protect middle-class jobs and coastal communities by helping to keep the benefits from fishing in the hands of harvesters and local communities, and strengthen the implementation of the owner-operator and fleet separations policies. So that bit I've read comes right off the minister's website, and I've got a copy of the website right there, so if people want to click on it, they can go read it for themselves. Whereas these changes to the Fisheries Act to protect middle-class jobs and coastal communities by keeping the benefits from fishing in the hands of harvesters and local communities only apply to Atlantic Canada and Quebec. And whereas federal fisheries policies in the Pacific region are to continue to privatize the fisheries, which lowers the retained value to working fishermen as they have to pay quota lease fees to investors who are increasingly becoming foreign countries. And our communities are not realizing the benefits, as are Atlantic communities. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Prince Rupert write the Minister of Fisheries asking that the changes to the Fisheries Act apply to the Pacific Coast so our working fishermen and BC coastal communities benefit from these fisheries, and be it further resolved that the City of Prince Rupert forward this resolution to the provincial government asking for their support for this resolution, and be it finally resolved that the City of Prince Rupert forward this resolution to the regional district and ask for its support and the support of the member communities. So I move this motion.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion.
I just would like to say that I spent a couple of days in Victoria last week talking to the Ministry of Fisheries, the Minister of Forest, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. That's Lana Popham and is the Fisheries Minister, and Doug Donaldson is the Ministry of Forest, Lands, Resources, etc., and Rural Communities. And also we met with the Deputy Minister for the Premier. And the Deputy Minister that we met with is in charge of economic development. And I think it's fair to say that the province is very interested in doing something to bring back the benefits of fishing to rural coastal communities. And they are mulling over their options right now, but certainly the provincial government does not appear to be in favor of having investors, particularly foreign countries, taking the landed value out of the pockets of fishermen and out of the pockets of coastal communities. So they're looking at a number of economic issues to move forward that will benefit Prince Rupert and all other coastal communities. And I would like to encourage them, and part of that is we can do all the economic deals that we want with the provincial government to help fisheries to be landed here. If fishermen don't see the value, if the working guy who's on the deck of the boat doesn't see the value of the fish, and instead that goes to somebody in Hawaii who's charging 80% of the value for a lease fee, then it doesn't do much for our communities because our fishermen will always be poor. So anyway, that's why I put forward the resolution, and I'm very hopeful that we will see some economic development in coastal fisheries within the next few coming years.
Thank you, Councillor Thorkelson. And I was wondering if we could make a friendly amendment, if it's okay with the mover and the seconder, that finally be it resolved, City of Prince Rupert, that we forward this resolution not only to our regional district, but to other coastal regional districts as well.
Oh, certainly I would agree to that.
I would agree also.
Okay. Any other discussion from Council? Councillor Randhawa.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great motion, and we need all our jobs back in our community. We lost, especially all the workers and students that help us. So I fully support this motion.
Great. Any further discussion? Councillor Niche.
I don't think we can make the fishing industry any worse by supporting this. I think we've pretty well hit rock bottom as it is, and I think this is a good start to try and hopefully turn it around and head back in the right direction again.
Councillor Cunningham.
I walk the docks down on the waterfront quite a bit, and you see the gillnet fleet in disrepair, people almost walking away from their boats because they can't afford to spend any money on their boats. And whereas our fleet is shrinking, like I just looked up in Nova Scotia, and the last year of stats from there was 2013, and it was 4,000 registered fishing vessels and 5,700 commercial fishing licenses. And these are privately owned, and so people are making money out of the fishery and putting it back into the industry in their vessels and creating a lot of spin-off jobs that we're seeing shrink in this town simply because the men don't have money to spend on their boats because the fishing impact is shrinking more and more every year. You know, the biggest impact was our cannery last year. You know, like hundreds of jobs were cut there. And, you know, one person controls a bunch of licenses and the landed product when it comes here, and it's being shipped everywhere but where it should be. And if we can get an adjacency law, which this council has promoted before, or something like that, where this fish gets processed in our town and not over in China, Taiwan, or down the lower mainland, but here in Prince Rupert, where we create a lot of extra cash for spin-offs to buy furniture or whatever. You know, it's just a win-win for us if we go back to the owner-operated vessels.
That's absolutely astonishing to me that the rules on the East Coast are that drastically different than on the West Coast. And even at that level should be an even playing field. So any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is unanimously resolved. Thank you, Councillor Thorkelson. And we'll get Councillor Morrow back in here. Okay, moving on to council reports. I'll just say one quick thing. I just want to do a big shout out to the Rupert Rubbish Roundup folks that organized the community this weekend into different neighborhoods to clean up the entire community and those areas. The city partnered with the group to pick up heavy items as well as the dumps. I know that Councillor Moreau was involved with it as well. I'm not sure if any other councillors here were, but Councillor Ranhawa was. So yeah, it was absolutely astounding to see the community come together to start cleaning up the place. And I just wanted to do a big shout out to the organizers who helped make that happen. So anyways, other further council reports. Councillor Ranhawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lots of people are still concerning about the Greyhound or any backup plans for that. You heard anything about that?
Yes, actually, I was just in Victoria. I met with the Minister of Transportation, and Minister Trevena is actually trying to organize a regional meeting in Smithers, as well as to potentially something happening at the CLGA in May in Fort Nelson. So it's certainly not just falling on deaf ears from here. Councillor Niche.
I got a couple things. First, I was hoping to maybe get an answer from city staff if they know, and if not, then maybe if we can find out. But I found that the crosswalks this year have just disappeared, and I know it's supposedly something to do with a more environmentally safe paint. Now, I want to know if this is something that was a choice by our city, or if this is something that is being forced upon the whole industry, by painters, or because of they're being forced to do this. But there's crosswalks that have almost completely disappeared this year, and I understand that winter will do that somewhat, but there is crosswalks that all over this town that you can't even see anymore. Like they're completely gone. And I've noticed more and more of this. And there was actually some on 3rd Avenue that are worse than others, and I believe that they were actually ones that were painted more on a little bit more damp days, maybe foggy days. So I just would like to know if this is something that was forced upon us by whether it be a provincial legislation or what?
We can certainly provide an answer back to council on that.
Thank you. Next.
And the second thing is I would like staff to maybe if we can start looking back into we had started some workshops in the last couple of years. We were working quite hard at it as far as what to do with empty properties around this town, and I think that now that maybe the speculation of LNG is gone, maybe we won't have to worry about these people rushing our town and buying up everything, and maybe we can start looking into some policy again of empty lots and maybe trying to sell them, and give either the people that live next door to them opportunity to buy first, or trying to get these properties generating tax revenue again. And I think that I would just like to see that kind of revised or revived again, because I think that we were on the right track and we were touring city properties, and we were, maybe trying to come up with something to sell them. And if they should be sold, some we may have to keep for strategic reasons, whether it's to run a sewer line through, but there is plenty of lots around this town that are not generating revenue right now and could be generating revenue. Maybe we have to have other policies, like if the neighboring person doesn't buy it, then and someone else buys it, if they don't build on it within 2 years, then it goes back to the city, or something to protect the city from it just sitting there empty again. Because I do think that we may, we don't have a lot, but there is definitely some that could be sold for sure.
Okay. Councillor Moreau, then Councillor Cunningham.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If you guys will recall, a few months ago, the new city communications policy was tabled, just so people had some more time to read and consider it. So I was just wondering if everyone's had the time, and if you guys are ready to reconsider that motion.
You're good, Don? Yeah. You're tabled it, so you're good?
Yeah, no, I've been waiting for it to come back.
Well, I guess we've been waiting to hear from you, I guess. So now
I didn't know we put the table in the back parking lot and forgot about it.
Okay, yeah, we'll get that moving forward again. Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, first of all, I concur with Councillor Neese on that property thing. I've been approached by different people about wanting to buy property beside their lots or splitting a lot with somebody else, and they've come to City Hall to talk about it and been flatly said no. And it's a piece of land that's almost undevelopable. It's on a hillside and things like that. And there's other pieces of property around town, and I agree 100% with the councillor that we should be looking at getting some revenue from these pieces of land. And a policy should be developed. I know we were working that way, and it just seemed to go by the wayside. But that said, another thing for the staff is follow up on our little fish market idea down on the government, our dock. We've
Actually,
discussed it a couple times.
I can say something about that.
Okay.
So right now there's the North Coast Innovation Lab, which is being led by EcoTrust. And one of the projects that they're discussing is a fish market project on the marina, and they're working with our staff on that project. So it's been that North Coast Innovation Lab process now is taking that project up, and so there is a process behind it, and they're collaborating with our staff. So the North Coast Innovation Lab has just finished kind of their assessments of the community and have used the redesigned Rupert information, and now have kind of narrowed down some of the projects they want to move forward on and start getting some things down on the ground. So that was after the public consultation, was one of the big ones that people wanted. So they're gonna take up that initiative and have already worked with our marina manager as well as our ECDev organizer on that. So that's definitely in the works, and I know that's a big plan for them, and so just wanted to let you know that that's in the works.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to see it come to fruition this spring, even for Seafest, so when we get a lot of people from out of town, they've another added attraction in Prince Rupert. We need it. And the other thing is, I would like to put forth a request from staff to come up for a resolution for the NCGLA on how we can take fines from property, not parking or that, but just from property fines, and put them into taxes. If that could be a resolution that could go from North NCLGA down to UBCM, so that if for some unknown reason we actually do find somebody for unsightly premises or things like that, and we have difficulty collecting it, we can put it onto their taxes. I don't believe that process exists right now, and it seems to be a reason why we are not going after some of these unsightly properties, because it's too difficult to find them and collect it. And if there's a way where that can be put onto their property taxes, like your driving license for offenses and things like that, I think it would be a incentive to start cleaning up some of these properties.
Interesting. Other reports? Okay, hearing none, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned.